Welcome to the Enlight.Life podcast with Alexandra Cousins. Together we'll demystify disease and the debates around health, empowering you toward real regeneration and a life of vibrant vitality.
So welcome to the Enlight.Life podcast. I'm your host, Alexandra Cousins, and I'm here with one of my favorite people ever, and you will understand why by the end of the show, if not sooner. That is Helen from the collaborative
Marubra.
Marubra. I'm bad with names. I'm great with stories. And so Helen's story is very, very special. And there's so many takeaways from the story. Number one, Helen came to me, how many years ago now?
It was in the May of 2021.
Okay, there we go. Yes. And she presented with this condition that at the time I had never heard of, right? Intracranial hypertension, which I had to look up, and she went, well, can you help me with this? I have no good prognosis, because when you Google it, there is no hope for cure for anyone. And there's quite a few people on the planet that have this condition, and there is no official cure. And as always, when people present me with these conditions, I go, okay, you know what? Let's see what we can do. I have the deepest belief that everything happens for not just a reason in a metaphysical, but that there's something in the body that is just not happening. So let's see where we need to help the body. And within really a short amount of time, a couple of months, Helen's horrible, persistent headache that really feels like basically you have a helmet screwed onto your head that is consistently being tightened. So really horrible. It was alleviated, and we're just going to find out now after, several, sort of maybe a year or so that we haven't spoken, how are you now? And so, that there is always hope, that you can absolutely treat whatever it is you're dealing with, that if you listen to mainstream medical advice, you are never going to get anywhere but worse, ultimately. And this is not being, a doomsayer. This is just a truth speaker speaking. And that when you step into wellness, you can actually do anything. And this is where Helen really, she was yoga teacher, owned her own yoga studio. And then literally within 6 weeks of her realizing that, oh my gosh, she's being held back by this dis-ease, and she needs to get out there and she needs to teach others. She's here to be a yoga teacher of impact. She went and created her yoga teachers training, which now has been running globally for several years, super successfully. You're a total yoga teacher, trainer, badass. And I love all the things that you say out there, all the ways in which you prompt your women and maybe men. And so welcome, Helen. Long introduction, but welcome, Helen.
I love a good intro. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to share, because if it hadn't been for somebody else who I couldn't even tell you who it was sharing you, I wouldn't have known that you existed to help me. So these things I always think are so powerful, because you never know who they fall in front of at the exact time that they need it.
Absolutely. And at the same time, it takes huge courage to, and I remember you at the time saying like, oh my gosh, this is expensive and I actually can't really, but I have to. And so that even takes even more courage, because in some ways, and I've had, of course, many stories like you of people who were like, okay, I have no more resort, like you are my last resort. And of course, you are going to feel a little bit crazy, if not insane, to trust some woman on the internet who is not even a doctor.
Yes. And I think to just build on that for a moment, that, we often find ourselves in that space where, especially when it comes to health, and so many people's story where they've spent so much money and it's not quote unquote worked. And one thing I'd say that I'm really good at doesn't mean that it is in any way comfortable. And I don't think, oh my God, are you actually mental and this time it won't work, is that often we do get that feeling and it's different for all of us. But I remember once I'd spoken to you, I did know that it was the right thing to do. Was it crazy? Was it insane? Yeah, my studio had been closed in COVID. Like, it wasn't even that I didn't have any money. I also had no idea when my studio was going to be reopened. I had no idea. But at this point, it was one of those moments where you kind of have to look at yourself in the mirror and go, well, if I don't choose this, what am I choosing? Am I choosing that this is the rest of my life then? Like, what's the ultimate choice that I'm making? And I think that often when you get into that position, things actually become quite clear. It's very humbling, very sobering. And even though it's very scary, kind of the truth can be revealed in the direction that you should move toward. And sometimes it just takes so much courage to just do it. And more than anything, it's never not been true for me. I decided it was going to work because I decided to myself, whatever this woman can do that I don't know, but I think can help me, I'm not expecting her to heal me. I have to be the one that's going to say, I am going all in. I remember saying to my partner, I'm putting the studio down. I'm not going to try and, keep all the things up on social media to do with the studio. Fine, we're closed for lockdown. I'm just going to put it down and choose to use this time that could be perceived as the most inconvenient as the most convenient. We were in lockdown. There was nowhere to go. There was nothing else to do. Like, what an amazing opportunity to just dive into something. So really turning a negative situation on its head to be a positive. And I said to him, like, if the studio exists at the end of this, great. If it doesn't, I'm more important anyway. Like, I have to get well. And so if whatever is remaining after that point was always meant to remain, and if it wasn't, then it was never meant to. But I can't choose work. I can't keep choosing everything else at the detriment of myself, because ultimately that's not going to end. Well, it's not ended well, and it can only go worse from here. So like really making that decision. That I remember when I decided to work with you, I also contacted a friend who was a life coach, and I said to her, I'm about to go and do this really big thing. Could I have you on hand to talk to? Would you mind? And she was like, oh my God, I'd love to help you. Like, I set it up. I went and used all of the people that I knew and just said, hey, how can you help me? Because I was like, I'm going to do everything I can to make this work, because Alex is only as powerful as Alex can be. I also have to be the one to meet her with everything I have, because I'm not going to spend this money and get to the end of it and go, oh, I didn't give it everything. No, like, I'm going to give it everything. And I did. I did not fray from anything you told me to do or not do. When you were like, I don't know about that, or try this, I was in it. I was in. There was no, oh, well, I'll just have a cheeky chocolate bar. Oh, well, I was like, no, like, I'm going to really do this by the book if I'm going to do it. If I say this is as serious as it is, then I also need to. And I remember, I don't know if you remember, you said to me once, maybe it was on the first call that we have, I've never forgotten this, that you're either stoking the fire or you're putting it out. What are you doing? And I just remember being like, oh, every action becomes so clear then. Like, is this helping me or is it hindering me? And like being like, okay, well, if I really say that I want to put the fire out, then I better go all in and actually really, 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 really help put the fire out, you know?
Yeah, and this is where I want to say, I mean, you truly have been one of the most impressive clients in that sense, where I kind of go, people, for fripp's sakes, if you want to heal, I mean, you gotta, it's either, like you said, you're either going to go all in, or you need to really feel into what is wanting you to keep yourself in that position, right?
Totally.
And so much, we know so much of the medical system, if not really the vast majority of the medical system, is all about that. And And my big thing that I'm trying to awaken people to, to me, never mind, yes, I use the latest and bestest in detox and peptides, and, like I go all out also on the tangible. I really do. And I'm constantly educating myself further. But I also say to people, if you are not going to do the inner work, and if you don't realize that the power is fully within you, and therefore, if we give too much weight to science
Yep.
and beliefs, there's a confetti, then forget about it. We're not going to get anywhere, because ultimately we are the most powerful beings. And then we need to meet with science and with our biology and go, where's that meeting point? What do I need to do to change the inner chemistry? Because on the other hand, I think we have those people who go, oh, just meditate it away,
Yeah.
right? Or just do an ayahuasca journey and that will resolve everything. Whatever it is that we're attributing the power to, my message is we need to do all the things.
Well, that's what's so remarkable about working with you, is that you, to me, I was actually talking about you the other day because I have another amazing practitioner friend who really reminds me of you. You're very similar, where you aren't devoted to any kind of way or method. You're devoted to what works. And so there's no like, you have to do this because I'm now so tightly bound to this idea that I'm more bound and devoted to the idea than I am to you getting better. You are such a true scientist in that way. That's what science should be about. You constantly learning new things and trying new things, and there's no dogma. And equally alongside that, all of the emotional and spiritual stuff. And I remember at the time when I teach yoga, so I was aware of Kundalini. I'd done a little bit of Kundalini at that point. But I remember at this point when I said to you, what kind of practice would you recommend? And you were like, I'm really loving Kundalini and I find it really powerful. And so I would practice like an hour and a half of Kundalini every single day, every day. Like, because, okay, great. If that's something that you think might help me, then I'm going to try it. And it did for me at that point. And look, everyone's different. Would it be different now? Maybe. But at that point, like that, the way that supported me emotionally, and equally the way that you're so very good at like getting to the point. And so, like you say, really being gentle but very honest in that those questions of like, well, where are we perhaps a little committed to the old story, and where is it actually a part of us wants to stay sick because there's something there that we actually want to hold on to, even though we're saying we don't want that, and unraveling those subconscious patterns that are actually keeping us stuck. Because without that kind of trifecta of honest kind of coaching, really honest questions to do some subconscious reprogramming, and that emotional kind of support with the Kundalini in this case, and then the very kind of scientific, practical, like that trifecta is just, it's the winning trifecta. There is, it has every single, in yoga, we talk a lot about the different layers of our consciousness and the different layers of our beings. We've got our physical, we've got our emotional, we've got our mental, like just treating one layer of ourselves for anyone in chronic condition, it's not enough, because if it was enough, it would have worked by now. And for sometimes it is enough. For sometimes for small things, you can just work with the food, or you can just work with the diet. But if you've got a chronic condition, you need to penetrate all of your layers, because it's a deep-seated condition somewhere, or whatever's going on. So to work with that, excuse me, to work with that trifecta is so powerful, because it does permeate in a way that works. And at the end of the day, that's all you want. You don't care what the bloody method is. Is it going to make me better? Because that's the actual end goal, isn't it? So your work is so incredibly, not just powerful, not just like the variety of the work that you do, but it works.
And that is really my commitment. And yes, and I do enjoy that part of myself where I go,
Mm.
wow, what keeps me so open? Because sometimes I don't know. I mean, that's where I kind of go, it's the grace of God,
Mhm.
that somehow keeps me opening up, keeps me stepping away from dogma. And it's taught me over the course of the years, yes, truly, my commitment is not, I mean, as I used to be religiously raw foodist and all the things. And I'm not against raw food. It's just that in my case, only recently I discovered, oh my gosh, genetically, which was a total shocker for me, genetically, I have a freaking, go figure, rare genetic impairment, which genuinely is like freaking rare. And I can't process any plant sterols, which means no nuts, no seeds, no legumes for me. So, in order to get protein, I had to include a little bit of fish into my diet. And it was like, wow. I mean, I would have never guessed. No doctor would have ever guessed. You know what I mean? It's one of these wild things where I go, and I could only say, thank you, universe, because, like, rock me more and more, leave me without identity, just ready to absorb the knowledge. And I remember our conversations because, especially initially, I feel a lot of it was really around your, breaking the patterns of your lineage. And we went deep, which of course, I mean, I enjoyed so thoroughly. I mean, like I said, you were like my model client in all ways, because, like, oh my God, can't they all be this, like, just, you were getting it, which is also, I think, why you are such a powerful yoga teacher trainer, because, I mean, there's probably a similarity. There is a similar thread between you and I. Like, there's that flavor of, what needs to be addressed, and you can call it. And I think that's why you also really got my work. And once you got your blockages, I mean, literally, I was like, you were like Speedy Gonzalez. Boom. There she was. She went from being, in this deep pain and confusion, all the things, to like, oh, I'm launching my yoga teachers training. And, and by the way, it's sold out. I'm like, when did that happen?
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Amazing. Mhm. Mm. Mm. 100%. 100%. Yes. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. And to me, I mean, just the delight of watching it happen live, because in some ways I had front row seats. In fact, I had, the insider. And I mean, I remember like it was just, even for me, that was moving because it was like, there we go. This is what I'm freaking talking about. And yes, there were definitely other people who similarly, maybe they moved slower, and that's also okay, right? We all do have our trajectory, but I've never to date seen anyone do it faster and with more, just literally like boom, there she goes, she's gone, she's done it. And oftentimes, when I see you advertise your yoga teacher training things, I kind of think, I mean, yes, you, of course, I have never done a yoga class with you, but I'm sure, of course, your yoga is fantastic. But I'm thinking people shouldn't even, I mean, yes, go for the yoga, but go for the transformation, because this woman understands transformation, transmutation of your BS stories, which we all have, right? Which we all have. And in fact, and then I kind of thought to myself, if like I would go to one of Helen's teacher training just for the gusto of being in that energy. And then I kind of thought to myself, I wonder what she would unearth for me, because inevitably, it's like, of course, do I think that I don't have, of course I have my bullshit stories still, like we all do. And so I often think, will I go? I mean, sometimes it's a bit more, and yes, maybe it's a story, a time thing. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, I might have to go to one of your yoga teachers trainers. Yeah, yeah. Totally, totally. And when you say, people want to question, and of course, especially in today's world, right? I mean, sometimes it's exhausting. Everything is politicized, everything needs to be, and it's like, you know what? I'm not interested in arguing because I know where I come from and that my intention is, look, we need to get you well, and also that well means slightly different things for everyone. So for me, it's about, I need to meet you because, for example, if I tell, a CEO single mother who is freaking busy, and I go tell her, look, the only way that you're going to get well, which sometimes is true, not always, thank goodness, but if I go tell a woman like that, you need to go do a 40-day fast, and you need to do 3 enemas a day, she's going to look at me and go, honey, thank you. You don't get me. And, and that to me is the whole thing in the world of health care. Health care should mean I care about your health, and to get you to a level where you can actually have the embodied experience of what it feels to feel good. Then we can talk about how do you maintain it. Then we can talk about, look, let's insert some fasting or some enemas or whatever. But if I can't meet you where you're at, and I can't get you to where you need to be to experience feeling well, there's no point. Yes. Mhm. Absolutely. And I always think it's really, ultimately, it's because in my history of having struggled so much, The genuine truth is I have not met one person, no matter how much I paid them, that genuinely went, you know what? We're going to figure it out. Not I'm going to figure it out for you, but I'm committed to you. And for me, that is the tragedy of today's world. It's like the world is full of coaches and health this and health that. It's like, where are we caring? I mean, I love caring for people. I love whenever I see a post of yours and I see your fire, I go, fuck, there's a little bit of that in that I contributed. And it lights me, it lights my fire. You have no idea. In my darkest moments, when I saw your post, I was like, and in those darkest moments where we think, I'm nothing, like we all have those. And then I see Helen and it's like, oh, but I did change her life. So in those moments, those are the moments that have changed my life, right? Like, ironically. And I think, isn't that what we are here for ultimately? I mean, yes, science, let's be excellent, all the things, of course, given. But above and beyond that, to me, it's about, are we genuinely, deeply, deeply caring? And I really feel that is the biggest missing point everywhere. And here I want to make an example more than anything for the listeners, because I know that you get it. Recently, I was at this trade show, super cool trade show that was basically for insiders. In fact, it could be an amazing opportunity for you to go, and because it's a trade show for practitioners, wellness retreats, sort of like the cutting edge of wellness retreats and hotels, and travel agents. And the place where it was hosted, which is billing themselves as a cutting edge place for health and wellness in the making, and they're building all the cool things, but then the practitioner, two things, and whatever, maybe I get roasted for this, or it doesn't matter, but two things where I kind of go, nah, come on, guys. So there was food served, and yes, all beautiful food. The fish was clearly farmed fish. And I'm going, okay, these little details, they matter, especially when we're billing ourselves as this, so that's one thing. Okay, maybe it was a slip. And then similarly, the new practitioner that was just starting at this place was someone that wasn't cutting edge health, total potential. In fact, I thought, ooh, I'd love to get my hands on you, because you got all the potential in the world to really, but she wasn't there. And so these are just the patterns I see all the time. People, things, places billing themselves as the top of, but then they fall short in the details, right? And I really feel that what is making that falling short happen is that actually there is a level where we still are afraid to care deeply, and to care so much to deliver excellence, that we then start cutting a little bit over here and a little bit over there, thinking no one will notice. And it's like, yeah, true. Most people will not notice. I mean, I'm super pedantic beyond. My kids are always embarrassed whenever we go anywhere, because they're like, Mom, like literally they go, Mom, please. And I go, no, I'm going to behave myself. So yes, I'm extra pedantic, but we need to care more, especially in the industry of health and wellness, if we want to truly change this freaking world. But I'm talking to the converted. Yes. Mhm. Yeah. Hmm. Mm. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think it is? Because I do see this, across the board, having done a lot of different trainings myself. It's like, because you and I both have that in common. Like we reach in, like I kind of like, I'll grab you and I'll get you. And to me, that's like, that's the human, shaking one another alive, shaking one another into awareness, because, I think we all need that. Just like I said, I know that if I come to your training, am I going to have moments where, I'm going to go like, oh my God, ooh, I'm challenged. And of course, because as much as I've done a lot of work, there's always more work. And because each individual mirror, right? Like there's certain things I'm only going to get from you because you are you. And yet we tend to, whether it's in the yoga teachers training, in the health and wellness industry, we tend to keep things kind of clean and tidy. And I kind of go, yes, but it's like, what is that about? It's a little bit like going for, you know, a massage at a five-star hotel where everything is kept above board. They basically don't even touch you. Like to me, it's like, okay, if I'm going to go for a massage, like touch me, like really get in there, find stuff, move me because I want to be moved. Otherwise, why do I go for a massage? Whereas it, Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mhm. Absolutely. And I think in today's day and age, more than ever before, I'm continuously finding myself, I mean, my latest, all the certifications and studies of of the last 3 4 years really have been me going into basically the eye of the storm of the various things and going, you know what, I'm tired of listening to hearsay and regurgitating stuff. I want to know, I want to go see, because there is untruth on all sides. So unless you know, and especially the age of Aquarius, unless you have fully had your own personal experience, be aware of saying anything, because my own lessons in the last few years have been I've had to relearn many things that I was demonizing, and I'm so grateful, right? Like I could sit here and go, okay, I'm not going to say anything about it. Like, let's just pretend it didn't happen. No, I'm human. And yes, I was ripped to shreds in so many ways. And I was opened up and gone, well, Alex, you were wrong about a couple things, which then also, by the way, doesn't mean now I need to demonize everything I was doing before, right? Yes. So easy, no matter what we're talking about, whether it's me spending years doing long fasts, which yes, I no longer do because I did them, and so it's like I no longer talk about it because I did it. Do I still suggest it to some people? Yes, I do, but I'm not constantly walking around with the board long fasts are the thing to do. And the same thing with raw food. I did that until it was a time where for various reasons it was like I no longer am 100% raw. And couple of reasons that I already mentioned. But that period served me, and I loved that period tremendously. And in fact, still, I'm gonna go back to periods of being all raw. So I feel in today's world, we need to learn to live in the gray zones, right? And to kind of go, you know what? Sometimes you can be this, and then you go back to that, and then it also depends what time, climate, etc., do you live in, like what is serving you. Yeah, I feel that's been my biggest meditation in the last few years, to go, can we stop demonizing anything, and this is the message for the listeners, if you are sitting there and demonizing anything, write it down and then dive into those subjects head first and sit with the discomfort. of, oh my God. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said there, but we'll wrap it up here. I feel this has been such a rich and deep conversation, and those with ears to listen and hearts to listen, you will have received a lot out of this. And ultimately, I do feel, Helen, what you are here to teach, even with your health story, right, which I love sharing with others because it's such a model health story of there is hope for everyone, and that hope is typically found outside of the box, and that once you step into your true wellness, you will unleash a flowering of your own persona like you cannot even fathom. That is kind of my favorite. And to see that in action is like, yes, there we go. And of course, my recommendation is, if you are even remotely thinking of doing a yoga teacher's training, but actually, as I so many times have thought for myself, if you are looking for a revolutionary process for your own self, I would say go to Helen's yoga teachers training. I've had little glimpses of your videos, and of course, because I know who you are, it's like, yep. Even if you want like a whole business upgrade, my experience is a lot of the business coaches, you're not going to get what you're really going to be looking for. Whereas, just my sense, and also having watched your success over the last few years, where it's like, okay, this woman is someone that you want to go and learn from and be stirred by. Yes. Mm, super powerful. Yes. And I must say, North Bali, I feel is totally underrated. It is one of my favorite places to go and fast and just be. And the power of the land, yeah, you just have, just being there already is a shift in frequency. And then, wow, everything that you hold and bring, I can only imagine that people walk out of there, um I was going to say floating, but not deeply rooted, because that's actually the other thing, right? Like, we want to be deeply rooted in our physicality whilst also being completely open to really anything, because otherwise we come with our predetermined stories and we're back to where we thought we didn't want to be. So thank you, Helen, for joining me for this conversation. I know we had scheduled it at some other time and it didn't happen, and I was like, I'm gonna make it happen. Thank you, Helen. Much love to you.